Everything else we're going to do in Chapter 10 involves word problems. And word problems, one of the great ones are formulas. Formulas for area, formulas for perimeter, slope of a line, equation of line, all those things. So what we're doing with these formulas is first, formulas involve like lots of exponents, lots of variables, and then maybe a constant in there. A constant just means there's a number like pi or 4/3 or 1/2 or something like that. When we solve the formula, we're not really going to solve it. We're going to isolate a variable, one specific variable. Like I said, a lot of times they have lots of exponents and variables in there along with some other things. What you got to think about is really what the process is that you're going to do this. We're going to use SADMAP. So just like all the other problems, you want to make sure you're saying it to yourself. What are the operations that are going on? The first example is pretty simple, but they do get a little bit harder after that. So usually you're told to solve the equation x equals a plus b for a. Again, remember that you're not solving, you're just getting a all by itself. So here's the a that I want to get all by itself. If I do this, I might want to go ahead and rearrange this. Remember how we did in 1- and 2-step equations? Get that variable that you're trying to keep, or the piece that you want, as far away from the other side as you can. You want to be able to work this backwards. So b is going to backwards and opposite with the x. So I'm going to subtract it over. So x minus b equals a, and that's it. This is what I would use. Now that I have a isolated, if I wanted to solve for it, all I have to do is plug in a number for x, plug in a number for b, and do that math. Do the subtraction part. Now we're going to look at a couple formulas that you guys should know. Area of a triangle. Area is 1/2 base times height. If I take this 1/2 and write what it actually means, it says take the base times height of a triangle and divide it by 2. We're going to solve this formula for h. So this is what we need to get all by itself. So base times height divided by 2. The last thing I said is divide by 2. So that's the first thing I'm going to do, is the opposite and backwards of that. So I'm going to multiply area, A, times 2, which leaves me base times height. I'm going to keep this h here, the height, so I'm going to remove the b. Base times height, the opposite is to divide. So it's going to be area times 2, and divide it by the base, and that's going to give me the height. Area of a circle is another one that's pretty popular. You know the size of your circle that you have, but you need to know what the radius was that you started with. And that's what this one says. Solve the formula for r. What's the radius? This says pi times radius squared. So I need to remove the pi and the squared. And we've done these before, so don't worry about that. Working through SADMAP, multiply is the first part. So I'm going to area divided by pi. And now I got to remove the exponent. When you remove an exponent of square, the opposite of that is square root. So I would square root this entire piece to get the radius. So I'm going to take the area of the circle, divide it by 3.14, and then square root that answer. And that's going to give me the radius of my circle, the starting part. Another formula that you have is distance equals rate times time, or d equals r times t. We're going to solve this for rate. So I know the distance I'm going to go. I know how long it's going to take me to get there. How fast can I drive without perhaps getting in trouble? So I need to keep r. So the opposite of multiply by t is to divide. I would take the distance that I'm driving, divide it by that time, and that would tell me the speed that I need to travel. Pretty easy stuff. As you work through these practice problems that go along with the formula introduction, be aware of sometimes you have several multiplication pieces going on, like these last two problems. If that is true, you can divide off everything all at once. So for volume equals length times width times height. As I said, all of this is multiplied together. So this is like length times some gigantic number. If there was numbers in here, I'm going to divide that big number off. So that's how I'm going to solve for L. Volume, V, divided by width and height, or width times height multiplied together. And that will solve for L. So when you have one big chunk like that, several pieces that you might be able to divide off, just go ahead and divide it off altogether. If you don't, you end up getting a fraction and a fraction and a fraction, and holy cow, nobody wants to figure out how to deal with that, even with a calculator. I will post a solution to this practice questions for you guys who are working from home later in the week.